bad.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Rico, also known as Ricky Franz, and a great episode for you today. Today we have Kate Buckley, aka also known as Kate Awakening. She had a very popular YouTube channel, and her social media popularity was growing. And then, like a lot of these truth seekers, people in the alternative media who are trying to spark conversation and spread information, she gets banned everywhere, all the major platforms. But we go into that story, how she got into creating her own channel, why she did it, her inspiration, all that stuff. We get into some really personal stories, which I love. I love to kind of get a inside look at who the people are creating the content and share with you guys a different side of these content creators, authors, researchers, historians, whoever might be on. And I think that's what makes this show unique. And speaking of unique shows and conversations, if you haven't checked it out yet, please subscribe and check out the Union of the Unwanted. It is a big Zoom conference call of thinkers, researchers, historians, hosted by Sam Tripoli from the Tinfoil Hat podcast, Charlie Robinson from Macroaggressions, Midnight Mike from the OBDM show, and of course myself, Ricky Varanus from the Ripple Effect podcast. It's a great show. I really think it's one of the most important shows out there. The fact that Sam, Charlie, and Mike and I all have different backgrounds, we have a lot of things in common, but we have other topics that we dive deeper in than some of the other co-hosts, and we bring all those differences and similarities together in a conversation. We have so many episodes of the Union of the Unwanted that I think are truly special. We have shows that after the episodes, I just think like, wow, that was special. That was really something unique. And what a unique group of guests we get on there. We've had G. Edward Griffin, Jim Florentine, Whitney Webb, Ryan from Last American Vagabond. We've had James Corbett, Ben Swan, Dr. Judy Mikovich. I mean, the list goes on and on with just amazing special guests that have joined us in those unique conversations. So check that out. We also have a merch store now for the Union of the Unwanted, so please check that out. My guest today, Kate Awakening, has also been on one of the first Union of the Unwanted shows. So go back, check out, I think, episode 2 of the Union of the Unwanted. Also check out my other show, my solo show, exclusively just for my Rockfin channel. It's called Ricky Rants on Rockfin. It's a solo show I do just for Rockfin. The whole Ripple Effect podcast archives is also on my Rockfin channel for free. And it's also now available on Rumble, Odyssey, Float, BitChute, still on YouTube, most of them. So those are just about all the video platforms you can find the Ripple Effect podcast. Obviously, the audio is still available everywhere, but Ricky Rants on Rockfin is exclusive just for Rockfin premium subscribers. So if you aren't familiar with Rockfin, it's kind of like a Netflix for alternative media and sports. So check it out. Every channel has tons of free content. And then if you want to support the show, all you have to do is sign up. And by doing that, you support everybody on the platform. So definitely check that out. And all this stuff will be in the show description. Of course, I always tell you guys, this is a value for value show. Those are the ways financially you can support the show. You can also tip us on Rockfin, and some of you guys have. And I really appreciate everybody who's supporting me on Rockfin and Patreon. I have a Patreon page. Once a month, I do a podcast with my Patreon supporters, which is always fun. So sign up for my Patreon page and get the opportunity to join us on the next Patreon podcast. I also have merch, the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com. You can get hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops. I know the weather is getting a little nicer. Maybe some of you guys are looking for tank tops. We have a little bit of everything. And you don't just support the show financially by purchasing this merchandise, but what you do is you also advertise the podcast. People will see you with the shirts. People will see you with the mugs. Maybe they ask you about it. Maybe they don't. But they see the name. And maybe eventually, if they're into podcasts, they'll search the Ripple Effect podcast because of the merchandise that you're repping. But of course, if you can't financially support the show, please share the show, review the show, give me thumbs up, subscribe to me wherever you listen to the show, and that all helps a lot. Thanks again, guys, for listening to another Ripple Effect podcast. I truly, truly appreciate it. Please check out my other shows, like I said, Ricky Rants and Rockfin, the Union of the Unwanted. Enjoy this conversation, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Mine is not so crazy because I don't do anything fancy. I was literally just going live from my phone. I didn't do thumbnails for the longest time. In fact, the first time I even put up a header or had any artwork, my YouTube got taken down about a week later. I'm like, I've had it for 2 years and never had anything fancy. Tried to get fancy and they took me down.
Yeah, that's. Have you looked into Rockfin or any of the other alternative platforms?
Yeah, so I am just newly kind of looking into Rockfin. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm just using DLive and Twitch and Pilled/Foxhole.
Yeah, Odyssey's pretty popular, BitChute. But I know if you want to go live, I think Odyssey just recently gave that feature where now you can go live on Odyssey. But I know for a while people were on DLive and Twitch, and because that's the one thing that they lacked was any type of live feature. But you can also go live on Rockfin. And the cool thing about Rockfin is I actually just had the CO on not too long ago, and they seem pretty open to the idea of not eventually censoring anybody and really just getting behind the content creators, because I was a little skeptical about them for a while. I wouldn't. I was kind of resisting going there because I'm like, what do they know about the stuff we're talking about? And if they don't believe in it, then when shit hits the fan, are they going to have our back? And that was kind of my concern. But then people were having issues with Patreon. Ryan from Last American Vagabond got kicked off, James Corbett, Whitney Webb. I mean, so many people were getting kicked off Patreon. So I'm like, dude, our options are just every day getting less and less. And eventually, I'm like, well, they have enough content creators on there where you can see that they seem to be truly invested in this whole world of media. And so I'm like, fuck it, why not give it a try? And I didn't want to put my stuff exclusively there because of that concern of like, okay, you put all your stuff exclusively anywhere, and next thing you know, they get bought out or they have a change of heart, your life's work and kind of disappears. So
I know.
yeah, well, that we can start off with kind of that if you would like, just kind of go into that backstory on how you came up with this idea of starting a YouTube channel, how it grew. I mean, it grew in pretty quickly, because I remember when I ran into your work, I was like, how long she's been doing it? That's it. And she's already has this huge channel. So it was pretty cool to see how fast it grew. But do you want to kind of give a background on a little
Sure.
story for how you got into this whole world?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can start now. I know. I just like to jump right into it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, gosh, well, I kind of stumbled upon all of this by like having my awakening experience, I guess you could say. And I was fully asleep before that and had no desire to ever do anything like this. But I had my awakening, and I was just sharing information on Twitter. Twitter was my main hub. That's where I felt like I needed to be doing the work. And I was seeing other people with YouTube channels, and it just seemed like that was kind of the next thing that I should be doing, because there weren't a lot of people out there using their name and face. And I felt like, for me personally, I was gravitating towards the people out there who were showing their face, because I like to look people in the eye when I'm hearing the information. I like to get a gauge for them. And I understand why a lot of people out there are anonymous online. We know what happens to people when you start putting out the truth. You start getting attacked. People will go after your businesses, your families, etc. So I understand why people do that. But I did see some value in getting as many people as possible who were just normal human beings out there sharing this information. So I was like, well, I'm semi-normal. I just felt like it was my duty almost to just do it because I could. And I was hoping to inspire other people to do it as well. I don't know why my channel grew. I mean, it didn't get huge, but I noticed, I can tell you the exact weekend that everything started to grow, including my Twitter, was when everything started being locked down. So suddenly people are stuck in their homes, they've got time to research. And, um, I went from like 15,000 followers on Twitter to 260,000 within, I don't even know, less than a year. So I think I attribute that to a bunch of people just newly seeking information. And I think a lot of people just started to make those connections and find each other.
Yeah, I think 2020 was a crazy year for many reasons, and there's some pros and cons with the year. I know on this show and on many shows, people constantly talking about all the shitty things about 2020, but I think people looking for answers and people looking going down rabbit holes they might have never went down if they weren't forced to, was one of the pros of 2020. A lot of these topics that were very fringe and taboo, people were much more open to them and much more curious on what was going on in the world. One thing that I say a lot on this show was like when I started my show in late 2013, I've already done a lot of research. I've just been down these rabbit holes for many years, and you get passionate about them, but it was really hard to get anybody motivated, right? You talk about foreign policy, geopolitics, you talk about big pharma, whatever it may be, and people kind of just dismissed it, like, because they could go on with their everyday lives. They bring their kids to school, they go out to dinner with their wives, they do whatever they do, and it's like the issues that I was concerned about and passionate about, they didn't understand why I was concerned about these things, because they got their lives. It didn't seem like it had a direct effect on their lives. And
Exactly.
then next thing you know, this battle that many of us were kind of having behind closed doors and kind of warning people and telling people like these are issues we should be concerned about and be aware of. Eventually it seeped into our everyday lives, where it affected your kids' ability to go to school. It affected your, I'm a parent also. I know you're a parent, and this issue really got like my blood boiling because of all the things that the effects that it had on me personally. I felt like, okay, I'm somewhat sane enough where I could handle it, and stable enough where I can handle it and try to be optimistic, and any long-term trauma I could deal with. But when you affect somebody's kids, and when for example, I try to give my children the most normal 2020 possible with all the chaos that was going on. I had people over. Anytime people wanted to come over, I'm like, the door's open, come over, hang out with the kids, hang out with us, have a drink. Let's try to enjoy company with anybody who wasn't too afraid to do that. And but even my kids, who I kind of isolated from this issue as much as possible. I mean, my son would wake up in the middle of the night crying because he said the police were chasing him because he wasn't wearing a mask, and like things like that. And it just broke my heart, because it's like and then that broke my heart, but it also put in perspective the extent of the trauma to the parents who weren't me and not freaking out. The parents who were freaking out and their kids were sensing it and constantly sensing the anxiety and the just them being afraid all the time and freaking out all the time. And it's like the kids sense that, and you see it with like little kids. I had a friend of mine once. He was him and his baby's mama was separating, and he was talking about how when they were together, the baby was always crying, and then once they separated, the baby stopped crying. And I'm like, yeah, because it was sensing the friction. You guys are happier, you're better parents, and you're going to be better people separated than trying to make something work that doesn't work. And the kid's going to sense that. So even though in theory, it sounds like it's a better idea to keep a family together. But if it's a broken family that can't be repaired, then you're better off being separated and being two happy people who share your time with the child than two miserable people together. Just being together doesn't make things better.
Right.
So did I just rhyme accidentally? I probably, but
I didn't know this was a rap battle. I did not come prepared.
now it's time for your verse. But
I would die.
But so I don't even know what my point was, but I'm sure you have some input on some of the things I'm discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first of all, you hit the nail on the head with people aren't going to motivate until it touches them personally. Even the people that were awake were like, well, you know, what can we do about it? And there's always kind of this dangerous notion of, well, if it's really that bad, then somebody out there is going to do something about it. We have so gotten comfortable with just trusting authority. Well, you know, the doctors might, you know, we, on some level, you understand conspiracies and things like that, and really the corruption that has infiltrated every single large government, religion, pharmaceuticals, whatever it is. We all know it on some level, but we're like, well, it's either too big for us to do anything about, or if it really is that bad, somebody else is going to do something about it. And our comfort has really been our detriment. And this last year, 2020, was taking that away from people. You were now in their faces with, oh wow, you can't just like, you're the loss of freedom became tangible. And I remember thinking, okay, well, you know, it's going to get this bad, but, you know, people are going to see it, but there's no way that Biden is going to become our president. There's just no way, like that can't possibly happen. But now I am seeing why it absolutely had to happen this way. People have to see it with their own eyes. They have to feel it. It has to affect them to get them off their ass. And like, even right now, what we're seeing, what's going on with gas prices, and, you know, gas shortages, et cetera, that's going to get the people to say like, well, wait a minute, all this social justice warrior thing that I've been preaching on Facebook doesn't mean shit if I can't get to work now, because now this is affecting me. Unfortunately, that's how most of humanity thinks. So I actually see these last 2 years as being a gift in disguise. Not only, you know, people were spending more time with their families, they were forced to, when all of these kids, which I absolutely hated, doing the online classes, like get these kids away from the computers. This is so weird. But a lot of parents, it was very eye-opening to them to see what their teachers were actually teaching them and how they were being treated and all of that. So it was like forcing these things in people's faces where it was just like, oh, well, I'm sure it's fine, they're off at school. So this last year and a half has been absolutely necessary.
Yeah,
And I'm seeing it wake people up.
yeah, it is. I mean, I remember when the pandemic documentary was going viral, I had the most non-conspiratorial friends of mine sending it to me, like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? You know, and uh, I was like, wow, I'm surprised that you are even interested in this. And but I think it was one of those things that were stuck at home. You had a little bit more free time. It's so common. So I was born in Portugal, Western Europe, and Western Europe's culture is much different than American culture, especially in the East Coast where I live. I live in Massachusetts now, but it's go, go, go. You know, like you don't have any time to breathe. You know, it's like that a New York minute type thing where it's just like, oh, you know, a New York minute is the equivalent of an hour anywhere else. And it's like you just constantly have to go and move. And I don't think you spend enough time kind of just taking it all in, asking those bigger questions about like, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? Why, you know, all these other things. We just did a Union of the Unwanted episode on near death experiences and afterlife. And I think those topics, even though like from afar, if you're somebody like me who really tries to focus on topics that you can prove and you can like there's evidence and things we can kind of feel and see, it's important to also dive down those rabbit holes because you need those reminders that there's much more to the world than what we understand or what we see and hear and feel, and we're limited to our senses. And all this supernatural stuff I think sometimes gets put in a corner with like all the, you know, crazy people, and it's like, well, yeah, there's a lot of crazy people in that world, but there's also, you know, a lot of interesting things that kind of makes you question reality, makes you question what you think you knew and know and all that stuff. And you're starting to see it now even with the UFO conversation. Like it's becoming a mainstream topic that people before was like, oh, do you believe in UFOs? Do you believe, you know, and now it's like the Pentagon's releasing videos and CNN and all the mainstream media platforms are talking about it openly, not like it's a crazy thing, but like, oh, this is something that's happening and we should be aware of. And so I think those topics are really important. And so I think 2020, it kind of helped with like you said, opening people's eyes because they were forced to have to.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully going forward, to a lot of other things that people like to dismiss, like UFOs or any spiritual, supernatural stuff, maybe people are going to be much more open to those topics too, because it's like, but I've been wrong in the past. I'm like, when JFK, when people learn about JFK, and it's like, you put it in kind of perspective that a democratically elected president of the United States was shot in the middle of the day in front of a bunch of people, and they covered it up, and everybody knows that the CIA and the mob and Allen Dulles and all these people were involved. I'm like, if you know that could happen, they could take out the president of the United States of America knowingly, and like, why would anything else be off limits? Like,
Right.
why is anything else too hard to believe? So
Right.
you know,
That's why I think everything is connected. For me, I actually started off kind of on the spirituality aspect of everything, and then it really kind of hardcore took a left into politics. But really, when you get down to it, it's like it is all connected, because once you realize that the corruption is real and what they've been keeping from us, and that what they've been keeping from us includes all of this technology that would be life changing, free energy and all kinds of things like that. So then you have to get into, well, what else are they hiding from us? Things about our own human body, our own human psyche, our planet. I mean, how many of us grew up, oh, well, the center of the earth is molten lava. How the F do they know that? They can't drill down far enough. They like these things that we're like, oh no, this is tangible science. We know these things. They really don't know. They really can't even explain gravity. They can't explain all of these basic things. And so
well,
it's not that we should, throw everything away and just go off the deep end. You don't want your mind so open that your brains fall out. But once you kind of see past the veil a little bit, you will start to question kind of everything. And it's good to question, not believe everything you see, but it's good to question and keep an open mind, because yeah, a lot of us have had very interesting, I haven't had a near-death experience, but I've had other interesting experiences. And most of the people I know have seen some kind of thing in the sky that they can't explain. Were these R's? Were they aliens? I have no idea. But that will start to burst through people's consciousness, and then they might be a little bit more open to understanding the world around them.
Well, that's the thing about all these theories. It's a theory of gravity. You really can't prove it. That's what people
Right.
don't understand. It's like, oh yeah, well, you can prove gravity. I'm like, no, you can't. I'm like, I pick something up, it drops. Like, there's a theory on why that happens. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't prove that gravity exists. You can't. There's no, people gather evidence, or they do a experiment that comes up with a conclusion that leads to this theory, but it's a lot of this stuff, they're just theories, and science is constantly debunking itself, and like you said, Nikola Tesla, I think that's why a lot of people in the alternative media community is such a big fan of his, is because he was motivated by his work and making the world a better place and getting people free energy. And he was very outside the box thinking in regards to trying to send signals to other universes, or whatever, and his intriguement with the stars and possibly life on another planet. So it's very fascinating, and his story alone, it's a story of corruption, it's a story of conspiracy, it's history. The thing is, it's funny when they say, like, oh, why would people believe in conspiracies, and it's like, because history's full of them.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
why is it so hard to believe that the government or corporations would lie to you, deceive you, for their own interests? And the reason to answer that question is, we'd believe it because it's happened over and over and over again.
Right. We're led to believe that, like, there are only these one type of people who are criminals. Like, if you were to say that one drug dealer was encroaching on another drug dealer's turf and they had them off, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, we understand that." And we're talking about, like, I don't even know how much money. But when you're talking about like pharmaceutical companies, like, and encroaching on their turf, like, what is it worth to human beings? Corruption can infiltrate and does infiltrate just about anything, and the more powerful you are, it doesn't matter whether the entity is benevolent or not, it will get infiltrated, because anybody that is corrupt like that wants to infiltrate the things that have the most influence over people. But yeah, the story of Tesla is interesting, because to him it wasn't just about the technology that he was unlocking, it was about the greater notion that they were keeping us slaves on purpose. And that's what he saw. I think that this was this benevolent human being that saw the implications of what he was unlocking. Not just that it would be, more, more convenient for people or whatever. No, like free energy or any of these things would absolutely change humanity as we know it. Nobody would have to go hungry. No one would have to live without, do without, all this suffering that you're seeing. And so imagine seeing these things, knowing that they exist with your own eyes, and then seeing how the powers that be will literally keep that from humanity and keep human beings suffering for money. And that would just absolutely, I think, blow you wide open as far as understanding what the planet was about and changing you.
Yeah, and Edison, which is kind of a better known, inventor or historical figure, he was a scumbag in the story. He was the one who was trying to suppress him and JP Morgan were trying to suppress, Tesla, and of course there's all the really juicy stories about what happened to his paperwork, his research, his technology, because he died in New York, and then they went in and took all his stuff. You have any theories on that?
Well, I mean, as far as, we know that John Trump was who got his papers at first. He was some kind of tech engineer or whatever. So he was the one that was looking at the papers. And same thing, like I said, you're not just looking at the technology and, oh, wow, wouldn't this be convenient for all of us? It was the implications of, man, this would change humanity. And I think that would be a very profound understanding that he might have had, and he might have shared it with his family members. I know I would have. So I could see why, possibly maybe Trump kind of grew up with this understanding of how corrupt the world can be. And even though he was technically one of the elite, he was, he understood it from a different perspective. Maybe he came from a benevolent, point of view. I don't know. I believe that I know Tesla's information is still out there. I know there are people still working on 0 point gravity and things like that on their own and secretly, but a lot of the people that try to come out and make it accessible to the public, things happen to them. They disappear. They end up having a heart attack at 32, whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a great documentary. It's a little older, called Gas Hole, about a lot of technologies and how the oil and gas industry just basically shut down anybody who would make a car. There was like one story of this guy who modified a car really inexpensively, knew how to modify a car to get like 100 miles per gallon, and somebody came in, bought the technology, and said like, hey, you're never doing this again. And there's the guy with it was like a water powered, like it looked like a doom buggy, and there's like a little video. You ever see that video of like he was with like a local news station, and he was talking about how he's like, you can put any type of water in here, rainwater, tap water, whatever it is, and you can make this thing run. And he's like, nobody wants to invest in it. And it was like a local news station that did this little just video, this little story on this inventor, and then he ends up having a mysterious death. I mean, same thing with like Gary Webb, and I mean, just go down to investigative journalists who passed away, the functional medicine doctors. I mean, there's all these mysterious deaths, the whistleblowers with 9/11, JFK. I mean, it sounds hard to believe when it's in America. For some reason, when we talk about political assassinations or other assassinations in foreign countries, we're like, yeah, that's believable. But when you talk about in the US, it's like, no, that wouldn't happen. And I actually use the same example that you use in regards to the mob or drug dealers. Like, they've killed each other for much less. I mean,
Yes.
You're talking about like cutting, maybe they're losing a little bit of profit because you're selling the same product, or you're in their territory or whatever, and they'll take somebody out. And when you're talking about millions and billions of dollars and resources and power and an influence, like, why wouldn't they? Why? And how hard would it be to find somebody to do it, and cover it up?
Right.
I mean, look at Epstein. I mean, could it be any more clear that we all knew that he wasn't going to make it to court. We all knew that he didn't kill himself, and they completely covered it up. They had the whole world watching. they found a way to make it look like a suicide, cover it up. Nobody is responsible for it. And that's it. And then Netflix comes out with a documentary just showing the victims without ever really showing the ties to the elite and the people that he was linked to, and really getting deep into that rabbit hole. So
Right.
it's just, to me, it just there was like a little meme that I shared recently. It looked like a legit like news article. It's like how to talk to your conspiracy theory friends, and then it shows two friends shaking hands, and then it says, "I'm sorry, you were right the whole time," or something like that. It's something along those lines. But it's like, yeah, like just about everything that we said was going to happen is happening. Everything from like trying to vaccinate the world to pushing experimental vaccine, to trying to find justifications to track us and control us. And it's, to me, it's amazing the people who are still brainwashed. I feel like there's just certain people that they might just never get it, because at such a young age, and as a parent, this, like we teach our kids to kind of listen to the authority, listen to the adult, listen to, be good in school. What does that mean? Listen to the teacher. That means, like, if my parents are telling me to listen to her and respect her, then it means she must be a opinion that I should respect and a person I should respect. So you're constantly kind of putting logic, or you're not really, you're not motivated to question things. You're kind of
Mhm.
motivated to like take take the answers you're given and don't ask any questions. And I always have this conversation with my wife, because I have my kids question everything, and it's like, if I ask them to do something and I can't, if they question what I'm having them do and I can't defend it, maybe I should reevaluate what I'm asking to do. Maybe I
Yeah.
should maybe meet in the middle. Maybe we should negotiate. Maybe, okay, you know what, you're right. Maybe I'm being too hard on you. Let's do this or let's do that. And it doesn't always make for the easiest disciplining and being a parent, because your kids become more free souls. But like what I constantly tell myself, I'm like, I'm going to make much more interesting humans who aren't going to just follow the herd and are going to ask questions. And I think it was James Corbett, and I quote him all the time, because I remember it was like, at that time as a parent, I'm like, yeah, that's so profound the way you look at it. But we're talking about parenting, because our kids are similar in age too. And he was like, I don't want to teach my kid what to think. I want to teach my kid how to think.
Yeah.
And that's so important. So are these things that you're conscious about and instilling in your well, child or children? I don't know if you have one or two, but
I have one child, a boy, and yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult because when you start seeing all everything is to program your child, everything they come into contact with, and it's frustrating. I remember my dad was fully awake when I was growing up. My dad was like the conspiracy theorist, and he was always talking to me about this stuff. In fact, what you were just talking about the vehicles that could run on alcohol or water, my dad was talking to me about that my whole life when I was growing. I was like, God, shut up, Dad. You're always talking. Now I go back in my head and I'm like, God, my dad knew all of this stuff so long ago. In fact, I just rated, he was getting rid of a bunch of books, and it's all books that just all the stuff he was reading 30 years ago is what I'm interested in now. So I am very eternally grateful for people like him, and even you, who have been around for a while and trying to do this, and holding space for people to look at things from a different direction. And really what it comes down to is, yeah, not just giving our minds over blindly to what we are told is authority, because authority can be infiltrated, authority can be corrupted. Trust the science. Well, scientists can be corrupted, and whatever it is, they're always, you're always going to have people that are saying the opposite things. Scientists that are saying this, and then scientists that are saying the opposite. But you're only supposed to listen to these particular ones because these are the authority. And yeah, so with my son, I definitely don't want him to become some mindless drone that's just like parroting what he hears from other people and trusting what other people say to him as just like the gospel. I want him to respect people that are older than him, but there is a way to respectfully question whether or not somebody is giving you the right information. So it's difficult. It's really difficult because our society is so stuck that if you try to do anything different with your child, You will be ridiculed. You will be, you know, people will tell you that you're not a good parent. I remember I posted a picture of myself in a MAGA hat and I had people telling me my child should be taken away from me. It's scary out there and it's intentional. They want to bully you into, you know, conforming.
Yeah, I try really hard not to push my political views or my ideologies on my kids, because I want, if we end up in the same place, I want it to be because they've exhausted all the ideas and they've explored all the ideas and they're like, okay, this is where I stand. And I don't, but it's hard because they are influenced by everything they see in their environment. And so if they're around me often enough, which they are, and they're gonna hear my opinions on things. Sometimes they repeat shit, and I'm just like, I'm like, what? I'm like, I know you definitely heard that from me, but when? I didn't say, I didn't knowingly say that around you. So it just, I mean, you should hear their opinions on like Corona. I mean, they go off. They just, oh, this is all bull. My son's 6, and he's like, this is all bullshit. He's like, and I'm not getting the vaccine and all this other stuff. And I'm pretty honest with him. I told him, like, listen, that it's only harmful for people who are sick and not healthy, and so everything I'm saying, and I'm like, and I told him, like, the vaccine is not, because my kids have never been vaccinated, so all this vaccine conversation is new to them. The idea that somebody will let a a stranger stick them with a needle with something in it scares the shit out of them, because they've never been stuck with a needle ever. So
Yeah.
they're like, what the? They're like, people are doing this. Why? I don't have to do that, right? I'm like, no, you don't have to do it. I'm like, you're fine. And
Yeah.
but that's the thing that really rubs me the wrong way. You want to talk about people saying your kids should be taken away? Any parent who's willing to give their kid the COVID vaccine, they should be like, those kids should be taken away, because you're literally giving them a experimental. And I know there's still people who argue this, like, the vaccines are not FDA approved, they're experimental, they can harm. I always say this, I'm like, we know for sure, even if you believe all the bullshit numbers and all the manipulation of the data, we know, even with all that inflated numbers, that the virus is pretty much harmless to people that are healthy and young.
Hmm.
Why? But the vaccine does not care your age or anything. You can have allergic reaction to something regardless how healthy and young you are. So you have one thing that is harmless to healthy and young people, and another thing that could potentially be harmful to healthy and young people. So it's like, why would you give it to them? Like, what are we preventing? I know more people that have gotten sick from the vaccine than I know people who've gotten sick from the coronavirus. And
Right.
and it's like, but aren't you supposed to be preventing these symptoms? Like, but yet you're okay with getting these. Oh, it wasn't that bad, I was just sick for a couple of days. Well, what the fuck do you think was going to happen if you got the COVID, if you got the
Right.
virus? I'm like, you probably were just going to be sick for a couple of days. Like, people forget, this is why history is so important. It's, we have horrendous long-term memory, and we forget what they sold us, right?
Hmm.
They sold us not this idea that we need to stop the spread of a flu-like virus. We're sold that we need to stop the spread of a virus that if we get in contact with, we're going to die, and everybody around us is threatened by it, and there's people dying in the streets, and hospitals are going to be full. And now we're just, and actually bringing up gas prices, very similar to like the gas prices story, in regards to like the psychology of it all. You raise gas prices really, really high, and then you lower them a little bit, and we're happy because at least it's better than it was. They take away all our freedoms and rights, then they give you just a little bit, and you're happy because it's like, oh, now at least we have 25% capacity. Well, it's like Hotep Jesus says, and he said on my show, and I've heard him say it on a few interviews, and he's absolutely right. If I give you 50 feet of leash, are you free? If I give you another 100 feet of leash, are you free? No, you're still tied down. So we're still on a leash. Like,
Hmm.
they're just giving us more leash, but we're not free. And
Right.
and people should be upset about this. That's why, I don't know what state you live in, but like
I'm in Arizona.
Arizona, how's Arizona been dealing with all this? Are they more on the
It's been pretty
side?
good. I'm kind of out in the sticks. I'm surrounded by cowboys and cattle, which I would have it no other way. And everyone around me is pretty cool. And but I think Phoenix I call Arizona the pretend red state. I think we've got more corruption here, thanks to a lot of different things. But and a lot of people from California. I am a California transplant. And a lot of people a lot of people are from California here, so a lot of that blue kind of bled into here, but it hasn't been too bad.
Yeah, well, that's good because they're talking about energies and spirituality. I just had Miriam Hanim on, and she's we were talking about how miserable she is in California, and
Mhm.
how when she was in Florida or she was wherever, there's just a sense of like you're happier, and I'm a big believer. I mean, when I named the show the Ripple Effect Podcast, it was named after a song I put together, and it wasn't just about like creating a ripple in regards to like information or trying to spark change with conversation, even though those were a big part of it, but just positive energy and negative energy. Like you can create ripples just with that, just being pleasant, smiling, being around people and being open-minded to their ideas, like that all becomes a ripple of more positive energy. And you see it with with anything. You get a phone call from a significant other and they're in a shitty mood, then it puts you in a shitty mood, and your next interaction you're going to be in a shittier mood, and instead of like the opposite happening where they're in a good mood. So it's really important to like consciously just try to be in a good positive place, which is hard. And I think a lot of people, especially in the alternative media community, a lot of us content creators that are constantly talking about these things and concerning about these things, it's hard to stay positive, but I know you're an
Yeah.
optimistic person. I've heard you say it before. Are you positive? Are you optimistic about the future?
I am, just because well, for me personally, I'm looking at things from a higher perspective. Obviously, when I'm entangled in what's going on day to day, it's hard for me to find the silver lining. And so I really had to pull back my view, especially since the inauguration, and just start to look at the bigger picture. And you're right, we do have so much more of an impact than we give ourselves credit for, just in our own vibration, if you want to call it, being a happier person. We're not here to get the right president elected. I mean, even though that is important and that was the focus of my last, 2 years pretty much, we are here to be good people. We are here to help each other. And there are ways that we can do that no matter what is going on externally. So really, this is, for me, I am taking this time to really work on myself as a human being, because there's not a lot I can do about what's going on in the external world, but there's a lot that I can do within myself, within my family. And I do think that that's what a lot of us should be doing right now. You were talking about with your children and what you're trying to instill in them, and that you don't want to, force your ideas on them and stuff. And I love that. My dad was Catholic, my mom was Buddhist. They never forced their either religion on us. They let us come up with whatever we felt on our own. But I do think it's up to us as parents to instill our morality. And morality is where we need to be focused right now, and putting that morality into our children. Obviously, that's where a lot of us, that's why we feel so passionate about politics or whatever it is, because it's linked directly to our morality. Don't tell me what it's all about free will. Your free will ends where mine begins. Don't tell me I don't care if you wear a mask. I don't care if you get vaccinated. Don't tell me what to do. I don't care how you want to live your life, as long as it's not harming other people. Don't tell me, how to live my life, and we're good as humanity. Anyway, yeah, I think that we're just should be focused on whatever we can take control of, because we can't control what's going on in the White House right now. We can't control gas prices. We can't control what's going on, in the Middle East or whatever, though we can talk about it, and we can start to plant seeds, I guess, in other people, as far as getting them questioning, getting eyes on these things, and understanding what's going on. But mostly I think we should be focused on the internal stuff and fixing ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think too often we spend so much time talking about these topics, and it can get depressing and stuff, that we're basically, I mean, to simplify it, we're basically complaining about people who are affecting our ability to live life to its fullest, experience life. And then what ends up happening is that we do so much time researching that stuff and talking about that stuff that we get in the way of experiencing life and living our lives. And even though there's plenty of things to complain about and the research about, and I also think there's plenty of things to be grateful about. One thing I would always say growing up is like, you know, mentally I would always tell myself, and I would have a lot of these internal conversations, which I guess would make me a little crazy, but it's in a normal way. I think everybody kind of talks to themselves.
You're normally crazy. Yes.
Yeah. Every crazy person says they're normal, right?
Right,
But
right.
I would tell myself, I'm like, no matter how bad of a day I'm having, there's somebody out there having a worse day. No matter how many things could be better in my life, there's plenty of things that I could be grateful for, and constantly telling myself, because it's like that old quote, if you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes. And I could look at my life or the world and say, look at this bad thing and that bad thing and that negative thing, or I could look at the positive things. Like you said, some people got to spend more time with their friends and family during the lockdown. Well, not initially, because they told you don't even go around them. But I have friends that were telling me like, hey, I'm the good thing about all this is I get to spend more time with the kids and I'm home more and whatever. And I'm like, it makes me kind of think about like, hey, were you, like, maybe you were neglecting all that stuff prior to this. Like, maybe you should not get back into rhythm of the way you were living life prior to lockdown. Maybe you should take this opportunity, take this experience to kind of rethink your life and what's really important. Because to me, like, the most important job is being a parent and being and being there with your child. And the thing about children is, a lot of times, well, the thing about parents is that a lot of times we justify not being around because, oh, it's for our kids, because we want to give them a bigger house or a better school or better neighborhood to live in. Well, guess what? If you look at celebrities and you look at a lot of kids who their parents had all those things that gave them all the things that they thought the kids needed, those kids end up fucked up. You know why those
Yeah.
kids end up fucked up? Because you weren't around. So like you were saying, Kate, like, so much of what a kid's taking in, and they're sponges. They're taking in information and input from everything, from TV to magazines to the radio, other kids. And so if you're not influencing their lives because you're not present, then other people and other things are. And
Yeah.
the thing about kids is they don't really give a shit if they grow up in a $100,000 house or a 1 million a dollar house. They just want the parents around. They want the parents around. They want their friends around. They want to laugh. They want to play. They want to have conversations. They want to ask you a billion questions and hope that you have some type of answers to kind of make sense of the world. Because a lot of times, I see it all the time with parents where their kids will, you can tell they're getting annoyed, and their kids probably ask them 1,000 questions and they're like, hey, it's this, whatever. They just give them the shortest answer and try to dismiss it so the kid stops bothering them. And one reason I thought about starting a podcast, this isn't going to be a surprise to anybody, but I like conversation and I don't mind explaining things and talking. I enjoy it. I really make an effort to, when my kids ask a question, to really explain the best way I can and in a manner that they can kind of understand, because their worldview is being developed right now.
Mhm.
It's very, when they're asking questions, I mean, that's telling you that I don't understand how this works, and I'm trying to gather the pieces to make sense of all this. And I always use the metaphor that I think life is a giant puzzle, and everything you learn, everything you kind of figure out is one more piece to that puzzle. And by the end of your journey, you're not going to have all the pieces, because nobody ever has all the pieces. But you hope that you have enough pieces where the image becomes a little bit clear. You can have kind of a theory on what it's all about. And well, kids are at the very early steps of gathering pieces, and the image makes zero sense to them. So you try to help them gather some pieces and put those pieces together, kind of like if you're really helping your kids putting together a puzzle. It's like, like sometimes they struggle and you'll go there and be like, okay, let me help you out, this, see how this fits here and see how that fits here. That's kind of what our job is to help them figure those things out. So when parents are trying to give their kids a better life, or they think they're doing it by spending more time at work or picking up that overtime or whatever it may be, a lot of times they're doing more harm than good in the long run. And that kid would rather have dad around or mom around than have that toy that you buy them because you felt guilty that you weren't around.
Yeah. To me, it was really important before I had my kid. I always knew I needed to be in a situation where I was going to be home with him because there was no job out there in the world that was going to be more important to me than being the one to raise my own son. And there's so much pressure, with Instagram and everything to portray this life of, having it all. And I'm going to be something on top of being a mother or a father. And I'm going to when you have those kids and they are in those formative years, I agree with you. There is no more important job that you have to do other than to help mold these human beings into good human beings and ones that have the right notions about life, the right goals in life. And it's just to be, help other people and be a good person yourself and all of these things. And I don't know, you know, if you're putting your kid in daycare every day, you don't know what they're learning, what they're interacting with. Nobody's going to care as much as you do. Bottom line, nobody is going to raise your child the way that you would. They're not going to be a substitute for you. So yeah, I feel like the raising of kids is the most important job we can do because they are I believe the children are our future. I mean, essentially, it's so cliche, but it's the truth. I mean, these are going to be the people that we're handing over this planet to, you
That
know?
and another thing I always think about is, so I'm sure throughout your journey of being alive, you've met many people, and throughout that journey, you run into people that have like weird things about them, or they have like weird things they like or dislike, and you learn about their childhood, and you're like, oh shit, that's why you're traumatized, or it was that life experience that had this effect on you. And so I'm constantly thinking about that in regards to my children. I'm like, how the way I'm handling this, is this going to cause some trauma? Is it not going to, is it going to have a negative effect, a positive effect? So much of what we're doing. And I think like every parent, you look at like your own parents, and there's things that you wish they did better, and there's things that you kind of adopt and you put into practice with your own kids, and you hope you can filter out those things that you didn't like. And but I almost feel like we all fuck up one way or another. Like we're all like, I think it was Brian Callen who said this like years ago on a old Joe Rogan podcast. He's like, we all fuck up our kids, one way or another. We traumatize them one way or another. We just hope that the way we do it isn't that bad.
Mhm.
It's like, it's kind of true, because it's like, you never you never know how they're perceiving things, right? So it's like it's like, okay, no, I can discipline them. I need to be tough in this moment. This is what's good for them. And it's like, wait, but was I too tough? Or let me be lenient, let me be a free soul. And then it's like, wait, did I let them be too free? It's like there's all these things, you never know what the long-term effects are of it all. And you ever have those internal dilemmas?
Oh yeah, big time. And every kid is different too, because some kids do need more direct discipline or, whatever it is. And some kids you can give more freedom to or whatever. Every child is different. But yeah, for sure. It's a never ending, you're always questioning what you're doing with your children, because we all have traumas from our childhood. And I had two really loving parents. I had a very normal upbringing, but I grew up in one of those areas where a lot of the kids I grew up with were rich, rich, rich. I thought I was poor when I was growing up because my friends had houses that had names, like something, something manor and whatever. So that was in California. And when I was 14, I moved to Arizona, and the world was just different here. And it was actually because I was a very kind of innocent kid. I was afraid of everything. I had never kissed a boy. I was like, whatever. But I had friends that were having sex. I had friends who were doing drugs, like hardcore drugs, and bulimia, anorexia. I mean, we were preteens, teenage, like early teens, and these really kind of adult problems already manifesting in their lives. And these were kids that on the surface, you'd think had everything when they were growing up. They had 3 nannies and, every toy imaginable and blah, blah, blah. No, they were miserable. And then I moved out to Arizona, and kids were kids still. And, it was just it was a good eye-opening experience for me as a kid. And I feel very fortunate that my family moved here when they did, because I wonder what would have happened to me if I would have been, I know I would have been influenced. I'm a big time follower, especially back then. I would have definitely gotten involved in bad stuff, I think.
Well, all kids, I think we all want to fit in, and even if you know something's wrong, you might do it just because your friends are doing it and you want to fit in and you want to be accepted. Yeah, I mean, those are like suburb problems. Those are like, you look at the poor areas, you have to worry about getting stabbed or getting beat up or wearing the wrong gang colors. And if you're in the suburbs, you got to worry about overdosing on stuff because your parents never around. They're affording that, they're out working so they can afford the nanny and all that stuff, so you're home alone or you have no guidance, and you have money, so you end up doing drugs or whatever. I mean, the pill epidemic, I mean, it really hit hard in a lot of suburbs because those are the type of kids that were getting those drugs and were doing those drugs. They were bored kids. And that's the thing, like kids, they can't be bored. You got to keep them entertained. But I mean, the school system doesn't help because when I was growing up, I did horrendous in school, and I just always assumed it's because I guess I'm not good at learning. That's what the school tells me. I'm not good. I'm not a good learner. And then, but I'm like, wow, that's so weird because I'm so obsessed with like all these other topics. And as I got older, I started doing more reading, watching documentaries, learning about history. And I'm like, wait, I thought I hated history. And then I was like, okay, so this wasn't a me problem. It was a them problem. I'm like, they just didn't know how to make this stuff interesting. They were just asking me to regurgitate information over and over again so I could pass the test and move on to the next grade. But I'm like, what benefit am I getting in this? Like, why is this information important? How is this helping my understanding of myself or the world around me? And and that's the thing, like, you get kids that are bored, you get kids that don't have adults or some type of a mentor to kind of look after them and find something that they love and kind of push them in that direction. Then kids, that's the road that they end up in, being depressed, unhappy, materialistic, and I think kids at a very young age, and I've talked about this study before, so I apologize for anybody who's heard me say this before, but I think it's important. When kids were they did this study where when kids were, I don't know if they're kindergarten, preschool, they would ask them like, how many of you find yourselves creative? You're creative kids. Like every kid raised their hand, and as they went up with the grades, less and less kids raised their hand. And I think you can directly blame the school system for it because all the things that we enjoy doing as kids, like playing with blocks or drawing, coloring, music, all these things are kind of considered pointless and things that you should spend less time doing as you get older, right? It's like, guys, stop focusing on that. Learn calculus, learn this, get a good job, become a doctor, become a lawyer, which is hilarious because those are like probably the two worst jobs ever. They all overwork themselves. They're all unhealthy. They never punch out. They work long days. I'm like, how about you tell me to be get a job that makes me work less. I want to work less time doing the things I have to do and more times doing the things I want to do. And that's where like the Europeans, even though people call them lazy in America, people look at like the way they work. It's like, what do you mean you take like 2-3 hours off during your lunch break? Or what do you mean you're having wine on? I still do it. If I go out to lunch during the work day, I have a glass of wine and we take our time. You go to a Portuguese restaurant in the town where I live, there's a lot of Polish and Portuguese people, and you go to a Portuguese restaurant, like you better not be in a rush because nothing is going to be quick. You sit down, and why is that? Because we're used to sitting down, having conversations, talking, enjoying company. It's not just a maintenance thing, like, oh, let me just stuff food down my throat. It's just so I can make it a couple more hours at work. So it's are those things that are important to you too, like just community and being around other people that enjoy company and aren't just obsessed with work?
Yeah, I had a very I just moved back to Arizona about 4 years ago. I was living in California again. I've kind of moved back and forth a couple times. And in California, all of my friends were like doing really well financially and all had, they were movers and shakers and whatever. And I just remember looking around and being like, I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? And I think they all just thought I was a big old bitch and like, why is Kate just always miserable? And I think just deep down, I felt like this isn't it. Like on the surface on Instagram, man, do we look like we have the best life ever. And I was sitting there, I was fucking miserable. And so then I move away and I'm like, wow, I just want to connect with people. I want to read books. I want to, I'm glad you brought up the creativity thing, because I'm actually just kind of newly discovering the importance of that again in my life, and realizing that the happiest times in my life are when I was creating stuff. I used to paint a lot. I suck at painting. I'm not an artist. I literally just do it for fun. But it is an important, that's what we are as human beings. Like, supposedly this makes us very unique because we are so creative. What we can manifest on this earth plane is actually very coveted. um when you talk about like extraterrestrials and stuff like that, supposedly why they're so interested in us, number one, are the technology of our human body is far superior, but also how creative we are as a species, like the music we create and the architecture and art and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it is really important to not just get a hobby that's going to make you look good on your Bumble profile, but like actually find things that fulfill your life, find people that fulfill your life, and stick to that.
Yeah, art's always been super important to me. Music, poetry, writing, drawing. Um, it's a way of therapy. I mean, it's therapy. When when I've had comedians on or writers on, we always talk about this, how when you write something down, it's almost like you're getting it off your chest. And I remember reading this article about how if you have a really mean text message or email, then if you write it all out like you're going to send it, but you don't send it, you just delete it after, it makes you feel better than just not writing it at all. And I think you almost feel like you got it off your chest, like, okay, I didn't send it, but I wrote it all down. I reflected on it. I got it kind of out of my system. And but yeah, we're emotional creatures. I mean, especially when you become a parent, you become like the biggest wuss. There's that Netflix movie, it's called like The Mitchells versus the Robots or something like that. And it's like second in, on the rankings on Netflix. Who knows if those mean anything, but it was actually a pretty I mean, this is the first time I've watched a kids movie in a while where I'm like, this is horrendous. Somebody, stop this. But it was actually really good, and it really tapped into like the human or the emotional human aspect of us, especially as parents. And like, there was a decent message, because this idea of like when you're with your child or you're with anybody that you love, and you're in that moment, nothing else does matter. And you realize how important it is to feel those emotions, and how a lot of times we look at the world as like, okay, there's logical thinking and then there's emotional thinking, and we think that a lot of us can just turn off the emotional thinking. And it's like, no, 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 we're emotional creatures, and we're constantly being affected by that, based on, and it affects like the way we look at the world, what ideology we adopt. It affects the way we parent, or the way we react when somebody says something that might trigger you. If 2 seconds in a conversation I get called an anti-vaxxer, yeah, it gets me a little mad. I mean, I want to believe that I can continue this conversation without being emotional, but there's emotions, working up inside, where I'm like, this motherfucker's already calling me an anti-vaxxer. He's like, we've been talking for 2 seconds. But so yeah, it's one of those things where it's not something we should neglect, and I think too often we're neglecting it. We kind of just see it as like it's almost a not important kind of nuisance to our lives, like, oh, emotions, god, just leave me alone, but it's like when it to kind of embrace them. And that's what, like you said, the beautiful thing about humans is that we don't just embrace it, we use it for creative purposes, and we create beautiful things from it. I mean, the greatest songs, the best poetry, the greatest thinkers, I mean, they're all influenced by emotionally in one way or another, or in some cases they're finding a place to release their emotions, and get it out. I grew up, I'm a big metalhead, and I loved metal growing up, and I was really into industrial music and kind of electronic music growing up too. And the similarities in the two genres were they were dark, and that's the way I felt. And people would always, I remember being a kid, going to school, wearing black shirts just about every day, and teachers would be like, why do you want to listen to something so depressing? And I'm like, because it reminds me I'm not the only one who feels this way. Somebody else is going through something similar. And it's not that a lot of people just think like it just makes you more depressed. But you know what makes you the most depressed? Feeling like you're on an island by yourself, feeling
Mm.
like nobody else is going through your own experience. So to me, like that type of stuff is important. Arts, just a really sad painting or something like that. It's the most beautiful, like you said, it's like one of the most beautiful things about human beings. It is that emotional aspect of it, of us, and it's what makes us human. And that's why I think a lot of these movements, if it's a non-GMO movement, the vaccine movement, the whatever it may be, it's parents who are thinking about their kids. And I think when you threaten somebody's kids, it emotionally will. I always say, I'm like, you can say whatever the fuck you want about me. I don't care one bit. I'm like, it doesn't affect. I have thick skin. I mean, anytime you put your opinions online, just be ready for some people to say some mean shit. And so I don't concern myself about. But boy, if somebody says something about my kids, I get triggered so quickly. Like, and I can't control it. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm getting so mad. I'm like, and it's if somebody has a problem with the way I'm doing something, like, oh, how dare you have people over during a pandemic or whatever, or how dare you not vaccinate your kids, and it's like, can we have a conversation about this? Like, can you quit judging, and like, let's actually share our perspectives. So I don't know what my point was, but yeah, there's something beautiful about the whole finding some place to use those emotions and get them out, because like you said, even if you're not great at painting or drawing or whatever artistic thing you enjoy doing, you're getting some benefit out of it because it's therapy. One, I mean, how often are we not distracted and just focus on one thing? And two, you kind of tap into some things, and some things sometimes are way deep in there. I mean, there's trauma that we're not even aware of. I mean, sometimes people have dreams, they're like, what the fuck does that dream have to do with anything? And it's like, consciously you might not be aware of what it has to do with you, but maybe subconsciously somewhere deep in there's some trauma that you've neglected. I mean, I can't remember. I'm pretty honest, so I would share it. I'm not trying to avoid it. But there was something that I remember I haven't thought about in forever, that a conversation like sparked. I'm like, holy shit, I remember going through that and thinking that as a kid. And I'm like, where the fuck was that memory all these years? And I'm like, and then it hit me. I'm like, I've kind of put that away. Like, I didn't want to think about it and didn't think about it forever until that just triggered that thought. So yeah. So I think even if you're not very good at painting, continue doing it.
Yeah. It's funny how we kind of have we know what we should be doing. We are all living depressed, but we all have the recipe. We know, like, we should be drinking water. We should be eating food that is healthy for us. We shouldn't be eating garbage. We know we should be getting out in nature. We should be taking time for ourselves. We should be, not focusing on what other people have, like da 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 da. You could literally write it down and make a list. And I actually think that it's a very good thing to do, to put things on paper and to look at them. I like to write down sometimes the things that I am desiring in life. And then I will go back and look at it 6 months, a year later, and really be shocked and be like, wow, I actually have this, and this from this list, because you forget how at one point you really wanted these things. And we're just a never-ending cycle of getting the things we want or not getting the things we want, and then being like, okay, now what else do I want? We always think like, oh, if I could just get that one house, that one job, that one relationship, then I'd be settled, I'd be content. Like, no, we're never content as human beings. But we need to embrace that. And to me, I think having a sense of humor about yourself, having a sense of humor about your life and about life kind of just sucks. But like you said, it's not about staying away from the dark. Like, you were listening to that metal music, you were wearing black, you were kind of like enveloped in it. You weren't afraid to kind of feel into that aspect of being a human being. As long as we don't, either force ourselves to just completely neglect our darkness, because human beings are a composite. We are made up of light and dark. All of us have these elements. I don't care how good you are, benevolent you are, you've got darkness in you. And respect it, acknowledge it, maybe feel into it a little bit when you feel like you need to, and then do what you can to kind of focus on. To me, the biggest thing is gratitude, to be looking around your life and feel gratitude for what you have. That's why I like to write down like what it is I want, what it is I'm like, praying for, whatever. I'm actually a Buddhist, we chant. And then looking back and being like, wow, I actually have so much of the things that at one point I was like, oh, if I just have those things, I will be eternally happy, because it puts it in perspective big time.
Yeah, there was a album growing up of a title that really stuck with me, and it was by this band called Hatebreed, and they had an album. You know Hatebreed, yeah, and
Yeah.
they had an album called "Satisfaction Is the Death of Desire," and that title always stuck with me because initially I'm like, oh, that sounds poetic, but what the fuck does it mean? And then you think about it, and you're like, holy shit, yeah, it's simple. It seems like just a simple thing. It's not that profound, but it kind of makes you have a better understanding of like this journey, right? Like satisfaction is the death of desire. No matter how much I think this thing will lead to eternal happiness, once I'm there, it's over. That feeling's gone, desire's gone. And I think it's also in some relation to this whole idea of like the journey is more important than the destination, because the desire is what motivates us. The desire is what's the fun part about it. And then once you're satisfied, you're like, oh, move on to the next thing, and it's this like itch that won't go away. But that's why it's important to find happiness in things that are not so temporary, like
Yeah.
family, community, your kids, those type of things.
Right. Well, it's important to realize that nothing is sustainable, not even the depressed, not even the terrible feelings. I was actually thinking about this last night, and it's kind of dark, but my friend was visiting me, and I was dropping her off at the airport. And as I was leaving the airport, I always pass the children's hospital that's right along the freeway. It's right next to the freeway. And just thinking about, I can't even wrap my brain around what it would be like to be a parent of a child that was terminally ill or had to live in a hospital or something like that. And I'm thinking, God, how can people go on? You think about, you were saying we think about like how we have bad things in our life, and then, there's always going to be somebody that has it worse. To me, having a sick child or losing a child is the hardest thing that anybody could go through as a human being. And the fact that anybody can move past that is mind-blowing to me. But it is proof that like it literally is impossible to sustain even the sadness of something that is literally the hardest thing that somebody can go through. Life is all about fluctuation. And even those people, if they really work at it and have a good support system, they will smile again. It's unbelievable to us, but they will smile again. They will laugh again, because being a human being, we somehow we recuperate. But also those levels of elation, happiness, joy, those are not sustainable either. Nothing is sustainable. It's all going to fluctuate. And so when you're going through a terrible time, just remember to keep that, keep your eye on the prize, knowing that you're going to be happy again. And when you're super happy, don't trick yourself into thinking like, I'm here, I've reached the destination, because you're going to get a really rude awakening.
Yeah. I think about that all the time. I've done a lot of podcasts on vaccines, and a lot of the people who are very outspoken about it are parents who've had vaccine injured children. Brian Festa from the CT Freedom Alliance, Brian Hooker, who is the main the focus of the whole vax story, the Del Bigtree documentary. So many people just go down the list with people who have injured children, and to hear these stories and to hear about like their adult child still having to wear a diaper, all these things, and it just makes you think like how fucking grateful I am that my kids are healthy. Like something that you just don't even take in consideration, something you don't even you don't even think about. You just like, okay, yeah, everybody has healthy kids, and then you need that reminder of like, no man, you're fucking lucky, you're one of the lucky ones, and like just the idea, like we did the that whole Union of the Unwanted episode about life after death and these near death experiences. And I remember just thinking, I'm like, and I think Sam said something that I don't know if he said it or maybe I was thinking it while he was saying something along these lines, but I remember just thinking about like life without my kids, like me, like the fact that we can't be together forever, in the world that I'm aware of exists. I mean, who knows if the soul lives after the body or whatever, but I to my understanding and what I'm sure of is that this material body and the material body of my kids aren't going to be together forever. And just thinking about that, like, just breaks my heart. And just
Mm.
when just and that's why it's like, it's when people look at time, and I'm like known for, I always say this with my friends, I'm always like, you can make more money, you can't make more time. I tell them, like, when I'm trying to gather some friends for the weekend, like, hey, let's go grab dinner, oh, I gotta work, I'm like, you can make more money, you can't make more time, man. Like, once that time's gone, like, you're never getting that weekend back. You might have another weekend, but you're never getting that weekend back. Any memories that could have been shared, any moments that could have been shared, that's gone forever. And we keep living our lives like, yeah, tomorrow, we got tomorrow, or like, even worse, in 2020. This is why it would, like, just work me up so much. We'd be like, oh, well, it'll be better next year. Well, some people don't have next year, and it's like, you're limited. We know we can't live forever, right? So it's like, and you're completely okay with throwing away at least 12 months of your life for this nonsense, and you're just completely okay with that. Like, that's insanity. And yeah, I don't know if I reference this movie all the time because it's kind of a example of what I'm talking about. Even though the movie wasn't very good, the concept was interesting to me. You ever watch In Time with Justin Timberlake?
No, I don't think I did.
It's so basically, you have, like, I don't know how many years of life when you're born, but you, on your wrist, you can actually see the time ticking backwards. And the rich live forever because they can just buy more time. They add it to their clock or their watch, and they live forever, which I guess kind of sounds like, reality. They get all the best stuff, and we have to die. But yeah, so but it always, the concept of the movie was interesting to me because it's like, how different would we live our lives if we could look down and see every minute, every second, every hour that we waste. And when you could see that ticking away, it would be that reminder of, like, no, I might not still have tomorrow, I might not still have, and so I think, we need those reminders. We need, because it was, to me, it was like, it really, for some reason, upset me when people would say, oh, next year, next year, next year. And it's just like, there's not enough years in the universe for me to spend with my kids. Like, don't tell me like, I have to throw away a year of doing things with them, experiencing things with them, their development, them enjoying life. Like, their time's limited just like my time's limited, and you took away a year of them being able to just be fucking kids. Like,
Yeah.
that, like, you took away a year of them just being able to be complete. I mean, yeah, becoming adults sucks, and then we all have to deal with jobs and priorities and all this stuff, but kids shouldn't have to deal with that shit.
Right.
And usually they're shielded from that nonsense, and you created a situation where we couldn't shield our kids from this.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it makes me upset just even thinking about it.
Me too. It's hard not to. So, we can't look down our nose at other people because, like, we happen to wake up at a certain time before they did. Because, I mean, I can speak from my own personal experience. I was very much asleep. I wasn't in a bad position, but I wasn't like, I would never be advocating to control anybody else's life. But at one point, I didn't get any of this stuff. So I can't look down my nose at some of these people that are still sleeping. But it is very hard sometimes not to be angry at these people who are causing these things in our world. Like, when I see videos of children crying because the bus driver won't let her on, and she's like wearing this mask and she's like, I can't breathe. How do you not feel hatred in your heart for these people that are, these are ramifications? We are watching these things happen to our kids. And it's very ugly because we're supposed to have patience for these people, and we're supposed to, lovingly plant seeds and try to help them wake up. But, like, no, this is very real life. Yeah, just every cause has an effect. We're seeing these effects happen, and it's serious. It's very serious what these people are doing by not, I don't know, not opening their eyes, not waking, not seeing, not caring enough to really even question what it is that they're parroting.
Yeah, and this leads to another conversation which I have a lot. It's this, like, this internal dilemma of, am I upset with the person who's brainwashed, or should I be more upset the person brainwashing them? And it's like, it's such a back and forth conversation, because in a way it's like, listen, how much more fucking evidence do you need that, like we've been lied to every step of the way, we've been deceived every step of the way. But then in another hand, like when I had Mickey Willis, who did the Plandemic documentary on, I mean, when you hear his story of the extent that they went through to kind of suppress that documentary from the public, and ripping the documentary out of people's Google Drives and drop boxes, and getting it, taking down their website and all this stuff, it's like, it kind of reminds you, like, you know what, even if somebody wanted to go down some rabbit holes, if they really, if they had a conversation with you, and they're like, what Kate was saying seemed really interesting. Let me really put in some effort and some time into looking into this stuff. They can't find it. I mean, you've been kicked off just about everything.
Everything.
I think you have a link tree with a bunch of links that don't work.
Yeah. They hate me. What can I say?
So just as well as anybody, like, even if somebody wants to, they want to be maybe where you are, where I am, in regards to kind of the way they look at the world, and they're open to these ideas. They've made it almost impossible to really go down those rabbit holes unless you know somebody who can send you in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first woke up, which was early, it was February 2018. Actually, I like know the date because I went down a rabbit hole, and it was I won't say the word, but the pizza conspiracy theory. I had saved a bunch of those links, and going back even just 8 months later, those links didn't exist anymore. So some of the things that helped me wake up, I couldn't share with anybody else because they had been nuked off of the internet. So yeah, they do keep us silent.
Yeah, and guys like Memory Hold and Titus Frost and some of these guys who really go down these rabbit holes. I mean, they don't use their real name because it's I mean, some of the places they have to go for this information is pretty dark and deep. And I know you've talked to Chrissy Mayer, and she's been on my show and I've been on her show, but she was exposing child porn on Twitter, and basically, sharing the links, like, here's the, this account, here's that account, here's that account. And there's still tons of this stuff on Twitter, and yet they're using all their efforts and technology and algorithms and software engineers to fight people with different opinions and perspectives. And it's like, how do you justify that if that doesn't tell you that there's a greater agenda, and it's not about protecting anybody? Because I mean, one thing that kind of breaks all rules is, like, we can all come to terms that, like, child porn is bad. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, and yet, like, you don't think this is important to kind of focus your energy in. So yeah, I mean, it's wild. I mean, I know people who are like, yeah, I tried to look for that video you mentioned, or that article or whatever, and they can't find it. You try to look up the doctor that died after getting the vaccine in Florida. You can't find the article. You try to look up the 39-year-old mother who died after getting, I believe, maybe the second dose of the vaccine. You can't find it anymore. There's so many things that just disappear from the face of the earth. And that alone should make people skeptical, because it's like, what are they protecting you from? Like,
Right.
my thing is, like, I never try to push my beliefs on other people. I don't even like the term anti-vaxxer or being anti-vaccine, because even though I choose not to take any or give any to my children, because I believe their immune system is their best defense against anything. But it's I'm for medical freedoms. Like, give everybody the information and then let them decide what's best.
Right.
Is there a risk of getting the vaccine? Yes. Is there a possible risk of not getting, or of getting it and not getting it? Yes. You look at both risks and decide what's best for you, what's best for your children. The thing that pisses me off is the fact that you're force fed the risk of not getting vaccinated, and the other risks are completely suppressed. And so people are making decisions based on one side of the argument, and that's why you have conversations with people, and they're so sure that the science is settled. They're so sure that vaccines are safe. They're so sure because they haven't been exposed to any of these other counter narratives. I mean, you saw what happened
Right.
with Joe Rogan recently. He said something that was, I mean, barely anti-vax comment. I mean, he had Dave Smith on, and he was saying that, like, if you're young and I mean, I can't believe this is controversial, but this is how strong the big pharma mafia is, and how powerful they are, and how much effort they put into just squashing anybody who says anything even slightly negative towards the vaccine, where he said something as harmless as, if you're young and you're healthy, I wouldn't get the vaccine. And that turned into anti-vax comments by Joe Rogan. I'm like, I listened to the podcast. I'm like, it didn't sound controversial at all. It wasn't anti-vaccine. Like, why would you just throw out a general statement like he's anti-vaccine because he's anti? I know people who are pro-vaccines in regards to their kids, but are anti these specific vaccines because they understand that it didn't go through the whole FDA approval process. That in past coronavirus studies, the animal studies, the animals have died. They get to skip the animal studies, so they're just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take my time. I'm not going to jump into this vaccine. I'm a little weary of this one. So it's like, being skeptical of this vaccine now makes you like completely anti-vaccine of all vaccines, even though I think that he said that he has taken the flu vaccine in the past, or his wife has, or somebody has. So he's not anti-vaccine. He's had, what's that shithead Hotez or whatever on his show. But
Oh,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Who is another piece of crap who goes around just doing propaganda. That dude, I mean, what's crazy is there's a video, and I shared this on a Rockfin episode I did. There's a video of him being called out about the Lyme disease vaccine. He's friends with the guy who created the Lyme disease vaccine. Well, Joe Rogan, little did he know when we were talking about this, that Joe Rogan's manager, I believe it was his manager's relative, who actually got Lyme disease from the Lyme disease vaccine. And so Dr. Hotez they're talking about it, like, yeah, they're like, it was a bunch of anti-vaxxers who kind of put out some propaganda, scared people about the Lyme disease vaccine, and that's why I got taken off the market. He's like, no, but there's actually people who got Lyme disease from it. That's why I got taken off the market. He's like, no, there's no real evidence of it, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm just like, Rogan, like, isn't this a perfect example that you can't trust this guy, but yet you're going to let him come on and share, all his knowledge and wisdom, like he doesn't have financial interests? It's just, to me, vaccines are one of the scariest topics, because it just, when you hear about kids, I think it was Washington, right, where they were talking about giving kids the ability to consent to them in schools without the parents knowing. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like,
That's crazy.
that is crazy. It's, and I honestly, I've lost track of that story, so I don't know what's happened. But you're seeing in Connecticut, they're removing religious exemptions. They're all these things. It's just like, it seems like one of the biggest threats to your kids' health, and yeah, there's people always say, oh, there's so many kids who are vaccinated that are fine. You're right. And there's a lot of kids who eat peanut butter and jelly and are fine. And then there's some kids who eat peanut butter and they die. So guess what? Like, just because you have examples of people that are fine doesn't mean it couldn't have a negative effect on my child. And
Yeah.
I would have to live with that, which is, probably one of the hardest things to live with.
You could do heroin 60,000 times and live, and then on the 60,000th and first time you die. So yeah, yeah, anytime that there is a risk of anything, it has to be up to the parent to do it. I mean, even down to like what diet you decide to feed your child. You're doing no one's going to advocate, like we were saying before, for your child the way that you do. And it's good, you can listen to, everything's just data, right? And you can listen to what the doctors are saying, but the doctors aren't an expert on your child. And you're seeing things happening with your child that the doctors aren't seeing. And a lot of parents, these people are watching their child, they know their child, they're watching them 24 hours a day. They are picking up data that doctors aren't. And so when we started, putting together, when I say we, I mean parents in general, putting together Facebook groups and other groups on social media to start talking to each other and connecting dots on our own. Well, they don't like that. They only want us to listen to the authorities and not to trust our own instincts when it comes to our children. And that's really sad. But the one thing I really like about, I was telling you that I grew up, my dad was Catholic, my mom was Buddhist, and we got to kind of choose. And so I don't know where I am, like kind of spiritually, but I love reading about that kind of stuff. It's fascinating to me. But one of the things I really like about Buddhism is that when it talks about karma, your ignorance is very much your karma. It is your duty to know. And so even though it is hard to, even though you've got these authorities talking to you and giving you this information, and even though it's hard to dig up, on the internet at this point, it is still your responsibility. And yeah, they might be taking a lot of us down, but that's why we need to encourage more and more and more people to be out there speaking about these topics and to be putting their face and their name out there, because they can't make us all look crazy. They can't label us all conspiracy theorists, although they will try. The more people, we will normalize being able to question things, which should obviously always be normal. It should always be normal for us to be like, well, wait a second, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to make my own decision on it. And we can't let them take that away from us and silence us.
With that said, so what's the future hold for Kate and her work, content creating? I mean, are you just gonna quit content creating? You're just gonna keep painting? Or are you gonna?
Well, no, I'm not going to quit. I still feel very driven to help. I just don't know what the best way to do that is. Right now, I've got a book club, and the book club I like because we just do Telegram meetings on my Telegram channel. And I like that because they're roundtable discussion. And even though we kind of loosely base them on whatever book it is we're reading, which tends to be, something about spirituality or whatever, the conversation can go in any direction. And really it's the best way to just get everybody out there talking and give everybody kind of a voice. I still do my show on Tuesday nights. I'm on DLive and Twitch and Red Pill on pill.net, Foxhole. And so I'm still doing that, but I don't really know what the future holds. Like, do I want to be in media? Not necessarily. I just want to help. I would love to get to a place where I don't have to be doing any of this. Like, I could just go back to focusing on my family. But right now it's still necessary. And so, God, I really hope we get some kind of a level playing field at some point, like just one platform where we know we are not going to be censored. I really think it's going to come down to Trump. I do, because he is the only person that is going to get everybody over to one platform, because the people that hate him are also going to be there. You know what I mean? And we can't just isolate ourselves into these echo chambers anymore. We need everybody collectively having conversations again, even the people that don't get it, even the people that are sleeping, even the people that hate us. So I'm hoping something like that springs up. But I'm just going to keep trucking along. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of benefit in just the way you look at the world, and, using some of what you've learned from Buddhism, and to kind of help you understand the world and deal with the situations. And Odyssey is a great place. Jeremy, we did a Union of Unwanted with a bunch of alternative media platform creators. We did Jamie was there from Rockfin. We had Jeremy from Odyssey. We had Aaron and Kingsley from Float. And one thing I really like about getting to kind of know these guys is that they seem like they really are just motivated by freedom of speech and giving people platforms that are uncensored. And the whole blockchain technology is really interesting to me too. It seems like it kind of puts things out there without one person controlling it, which I think is really important. But I love Odyssey. Obviously YouTube, there's a convenience to it. I can use a Chromecast. It's on every Fire Stick, on every smart TV. The app's there. But I think when one door closes, another door opens, and I think it's getting to the point where the only interesting stuff you're finding on YouTube has been censored. And so, unless you want to watch cat videos and cooking videos, there's literally no reason to go on YouTube. So when you go on Rockfin, when you go to Odyssey, BitChute, all these alternatives, in like 2 seconds you'll learn more than you will hours on YouTube. And the algorithms, any content creator that's still on there that I've talked to, including even my channel, I'll put out show after show after show, and I'll have zero to no growth. And it's like, okay, so obviously the algorithm isn't helping me out here. So it's I use it as just because it's there, and I'll just, I'll go down swinging. Miriam was when she was on my last episode, she's like, "Oh, should I use code words because you're still on YouTube?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Just talk however you want to talk. I don't give a shit if I get kicked off YouTube."
Right.
I'm like, I'm on all these other platforms. I'm just recently on Rumble too, and so to me it's like whatever. I mean, YouTube, it is what it is. The nice thing about doing podcasts, because my show's 99% of people listen to it, they don't watch it.
Mhm.
And so they get it on Spotify, iTunes, or whatever podcast app they use. There hasn't been a whole lot of censorship there. They've gotten much harder on video platforms than they have on audio platforms, because you can literally
Interesting.
get my RSS feed and get my shows directly from me and subscribe to it directly from me and not have to deal with these other platforms and whatever agendas they have. So that's good, but it's also nice to have video platforms. I mean, Jason Burmis, I mean, it's amazing that he's still on YouTube, but it's thank God there is Rockfin and there are other places for him. And I mean, he makes his living off YouTube, and then you just take that away from him and you put him in a shitty situation, and he's doing his best to, tiptoe the lines that you've drawn for him. But it's it doesn't matter what you do. Like they're eventually, I'm convinced eventually they're just gonna literally filter out anybody who's controversial even a little bit. And it doesn't mean it's left or right or whatever. Like I think all the people that were super excited about Trump being banned everywhere, it's gonna kick them in the ass, because it's just a matter of time before content creators they like are getting kicked off all these platforms, and then next thing you know, it's gonna be completely impossible to be informed. And you're going to have to be aware of these alternatives. So that's why I promote, I try to tell people, go to Odyssey, go to BitChute, go to DLive, go to wherever you go. Just don't go to YouTube, because you're not going to find any interesting stuff. But these platforms are still necessary. I know, like Corbett and we kind of disagree on, he thinks that, oh, well, just create a website and be that way you control your own destiny. I'm like, that's great. But there's so many content creators I like. I don't want to have to go to each person's website. I want a place where,
Mhm.
like, I will run into somebody I've never heard of that's doing some great work. So I think those platforms are important. I mean, YouTube years ago, that's what it was, and you go on YouTube, it's like you could easily spend hours going down a rabbit hole. It's like, okay, 9/11. Oh, here's another 9/11 documentary. Let me watch this. Oh, now, the documentary about this whistleblower that disappeared, or this or that, or JFK. And now you don't get any of that. So
Right.
it is important, I think, to kind of help these other platforms for content creators. And again, to be optimistic, and I guess I'm trying more than ever to try to be optimistic on these shows. It is because of, if YouTube had a little bit of censorship and you could still find some good stuff, the convenience of it would be, just overpowering, that you're like, you know what, let me keep using YouTube. But now it's gone to the point where, like I said, you can't find anything interesting on YouTube, where now it's forcing people to be like, you know what, fuck YouTube. What are these other websites you're talking about? Let me check them out, because I'm so
Mhm.
tired of YouTube. So they've almost overplayed their hand. Ben Swan has a new platform. Pete Evans, the Australian chef, or also known as this Australian conspiracy theorist, because that's what Australia 60 Minutes called him. But all these people, and Natural News, Mike Adams has his own platform. Like, all these new platforms might have not existed if 2020 didn't happen, if they
Mhm.
didn't force you to have to find alternatives. So
Yeah.
that I guess that is a optimistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, and so eventually we will. I believe there will be something that merges this all back together again, but it should be even just a red pill enough to notice that YouTube taking down that content, when they decided, I think it was in 2018, that one of the quarters, they decided to start cracking down on conspiratorial content, which that's what everybody goes to YouTube for. You're not going to YouTube to watch Fox News. You're not going to YouTube to watch like blah blah blah. You're going to watch videos of Sasquatch or like UFOs or whatever it is. And so they lost a ton of money in that quarter. The fact that they went back and did the same thing the next quarter proves that it was never about money. It was always about control. They gave these things to us for free to get us comfortable. And have you ever seen the movie Wall-E? with the robot. It was a
Yeah,
Disney movie.
oh,
Like,
yeah.
there's like a scene because it's like supposed to take place in the future, and it just is this disgusting depiction of humanity. They're all obese, they're all going around in wheelchairs because they have gotten so lazy, like nobody uses their muscles anymore. And in fact, the human skeleton has changed. They show an x-ray where like the bones aren't even connected to each other. It's just like everything is surrounded by a layer of fat because they're just so lazy. Like, this is what we're seeing. Everybody has just been lulled to sleep on these comfortable little platforms, and then they take it away from us, and now we're all kind of scrambling trying to figure out, now what? Well, it's building up. We're becoming more resilient, and I do believe that eventually we're going to toughen up, and we're going to stop relying just because it's comfortable on these big tech corporations. It's very uncomfortable, by the way, to try to be exposing what it is they do on their very own platforms. Like, we all knew it was coming. We're like the violin players on the Titanic. So I understand why you feel that way. Like, just go for it. You know, you're coming down off of YouTube eventually. Everybody will be gone.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, send me links to all the places. Well, are all those links on your link tree? All the places you're at?
Yeah, anything that still works is on my link tree. I'm really just down to my Telegram channel. I also have another Telegram channel that I work on called We the Media. It's a collective of a bunch of different people. That's where we're kind of sharing the news. My Telegram channel is more just to like give updates on what I'm doing, and memes and fun things and inspirational quotes that I find. But We the Media is where we're all kind of working together to still kind of stay on top of the news, which I like because I don't have to stay focused on it like so hard like I was once upon a time. I just can't at this point. And my DLive, my Twitch, and my Foxhole or pill.net links are on there. And that's really just where you can find me now.
Awesome. And think about joining Rockfin. I'll tell
Yeah.
you, it's a pretty cool platform. A lot of people are on there. Sam Tripoli, myself, you have Abby Martin, Lee Camp, um, Jimmy Dore. I mean, a lot of big names, and Richard Grove from what's new show is called Grand Theft World, but he's known in the alternative media for tragedyandhope.com. And so many content creators, and so far so good. It seems like a pretty cool way to just try to monetize, Ryan from The Last American Vagabond, Whitney Webb's on there. So a lot of really good content creators. And there's the cool thing too is that they're not just accepting everybody. So like people who are just like new and like, I just started a podcast, can I go on Rockfin? Like, they're not just accepting everyone. So when you go to Rockfin, and it just came out with an Android app, they there's just about every like channel is worth watching, and it's somebody who's saying something that's interesting. So it's complete opposite of YouTube, where it's like you got to search for something interesting. Literally, like right on the front page, there's interesting stuff and people who are giving you interesting perspectives. So and they don't have, it's not like a parlor or something else that's been like kind of labeled as a right wing whatever. Like, they have
Right.
people from, like, they don't have a political agenda, so they have people like, you know myself, or somebody maybe like you who wouldn't say that they're just right or left wing, but they do have people on the left and people on the right and people in the middle, which I think is important, because like you said, you don't want an echo chamber. Usually you learn the most when you talk to people you disagree with and disagrees with you, because if you're forced to have to explain your ideas and then somebody's challenging your ideas, then sometimes you realize like, oh, well, I didn't think that out as well as I thought I did, and because I can't defend it the way I thought I did.
Right.
So I think it's really important to constantly be around people who are challenging your narrative and the way you look at the world.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things in this for me, the biggest lesson has been to be comfortable with the fact that I really don't know. And even when I'm like firmly gripping this idea of something that I just think that I really know, that it's okay to challenge it and question it and be forced to challenge it, because the truth is always going to come back to you. And so we need to lose our death grip over the things that we feel like we just absolutely believe and know the truth, because I feel like the more we learn, the more we find out, the more we realize we really don't know.
Yeah. You see that it's very common with podcasters. Like, when you first start a podcast, you have all these things you want to say and all these opinions and perspectives you want to share. And as time goes by, you're like, I got less to share and less to say because I'm just so unsure about so many things. And
Yes.
there's so many things that I'm like, this is where I stand now, but I'm not going to plant my flag here because I'm not, and really that's what we should constantly be doing is like reevaluating why we think something, why we believe something, try to get to the origin of like, okay, how did I come up to the, get here? What, let me follow my steps backwards and be like, okay, do I really believe in this? Have I really thought this out? Or was it somebody who's influential in my life who kind of pushed me in this direction and whatever? So yeah, I mean, questioning ourselves are super. That's why anytime somebody's super positive about anything, I'm always like, I'm a little worried about them. I'm not gonna, like you shouldn't be this sure about anything, and
Yes.
you can get blinded by ideology and dogma.
Yeah, yes. Sometimes it's hard for me because, when you say, what's your plan? I don't know. I don't know what it is I'm doing. I also don't know what it is I am. I'm not an authority in any way, shape, or form. I'm not an expert on anything, but actually then I start to remind myself this is what we need to gravitate more towards. People that are sharing information, being honest about the fact that, look, I'm just trying to figure this out, who are showing their work, like this is why I've arrived at this conclusion, rather than just having somebody spout out things to you and just you have to just accept it. So I do want to see more people like me out there who are just human beings trying to figure it out and get away from the mindless act of just giving our belief to people who have helmet hair and good production value.
Yeah, no, I think we're all on that journey of trying to understand ourselves and the world around us. And the beautiful thing about people who are honest about being on that journey is that we all grow and learn things together. Every conversation I have on this podcast, I leave the conversation feeling like I learned something, I gained something from it. And so I always tell the listeners, I'm like, it's not just a journey for the listeners, but it's a journey for the participants, the guests, the host. I'm sure when you do other interviews, you feel the same way. Like I've learned something or I've gained something. I go away feeling like, okay, that was a good experience that it has added some value to my outlook on life. So I think it's important. That's why I think the power of conversation is really important. But that's also why I think experts in any field can be dangerous because they're only seeing things from that perspective. They haven't explored other perspectives and ideas because you've been so focused on this one thing. And I think they're necessary. Sometimes you need somebody who have spent their whole life's work on this one thing because that one thing might be important, but they might have some blinders and they might have some blind spots. So
Right. Totally.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for the time. I really, really appreciate it. Well, hopefully we'll have you on a future Unwanted in the near future. I'll have to hit
Yeah.
you up and let you know what we're going to be discussing on the next episode and see if you want to join us and chit chat. And good luck with everything. And hopefully we talk again in the near future.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Take care.